House of Cards podcast, the show where we break down the art of creative real estate investing. Join us as we dive into the world of real estate with insider tips and tricks for making your investments go further. From buying with no money down to flipping properties for profit, we've got you covered. Plus, stay tuned for expert guest speakers who will share their knowledge and experience in this ever-changing market. So grab a seat and get ready to learn the secrets to success in real estate investing. And now, from Alaska to New York, your hosts, Chris James and Jesse Stanton.
Yo! Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. From Alaska to New York. How are you, buddy?
Good, man. Good, man. I can't complain. I was just, good afternoon over here. I know you're saying good morning because you're about 4 hours behind, but good afternoon. Yeah. But yeah, it's been a great start to the day. Definitely a lot of interesting opportunities presented itself this morning. So we're definitely going to be talking about that a little bit and pretty excited about today's show. How was your morning?
Today's going to be awesome.
I know you got the whole army.
Do what?
I know you got the whole army. No, playing Mr. Mom. So no.
There's a lag over here, Chris. It's not my Alaskan internet.
Let's see if I go over here.
Hopefully the interwebs in Tennessee is working. Guys, we got an amazing guest. We got an awesome show that we're going to be going over today. So hopefully you guys have a pen and paper handy. Hopefully you guys get some value from today. Like Chris said, dude, today's been a big week. Didn't we closed on Virginia, right? We closed on Virginia.
Life's a beach.
Life's a beach.
Life's a beach.
If you guys haven't heard of that, this is awesome. So we closed on this property in Virginia. It took a little bit longer to actually close on it than we were anticipating, but we finally got it closed, and we started an LLC. The name of the LLC is Life's a Beach. Dude, you got to have fun with this, man. You got to have and the property's just down the street from the beach as well. So it's freaking dope, man. I love it. And then we actually sent another contract out on for sub 2 here in Anchorage yesterday.
Yep, and that one will be closing the 17th or 18th. That one's gonna be a quick one, so I'm pretty excited about that one as well.
Ooh, raw, sir. Hell yeah. Awesome. Well, I hope you guys are having an amazing day so far. We had a pretty big week. If you guys are not following Chris and I, jump into our Facebook group, The House of Cards with Chris James and Jesse Stanton. We got a lot of amazing things going in there. Actually, we've got a handful of Zooms that we're doing throughout the week right now. One of them is the Closers Roundtable, and that is actually Angel. Angel hosts that with James Hostert. Those guys are killers. And actually, James was super close. He about locked up 2 properties right there live on the Zoom. So if you guys need help calling sellers, please come. These guys are absolutely amazing. We had our book club meeting yesterday. We had our first book club meeting yesterday. If you guys want to be part of this is an unparalleled book club. If you guys are looking for growth, if you're looking for accountability, if you're looking for ways to be intentional, if you're looking for opportunities to build relationships, to network, I'm telling you, this book club is not like any other book club that you guys have ever seen or even heard of. Even if you don't like books, this is going to be super amazing. You're going to get tons of value from this. We actually just got done reading. We started it 2 weeks ago, and we just got done reading The Tribe of Millionaires. Phenomenal book. Phenomenal book. If you guys have not heard or read that book, please go check that book out, The Tribe of Millionaires. That's kind of how I think about our Facebook group, Chris. You know, it's an entire tribe of millionaires. And anyway, you know what? I was going to go down that road, but I think I'm not going to spoil it. If you guys would love to learn more about it, go join the Facebook group, go get in there, go sign up for the book club. We had an amazing meeting, like I said yesterday, and what are we reading now? We're starting it on Monday.
The Gap and the Gain.
And the Gain. Go pick up The Gap and the Gain, guys. We're going to start it on Monday, and there's going to be some homework throughout the week, but then we're going to meet in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from yesterday. We're going to have our meeting on that book. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal.
Amazing.
Anything else that's gone throughout the week, Chris, that you can think of? Let me. It is
absolutely.
It's like 10 degrees outside, and I hear my 1-year-old let my dog out real quick. I'm going to be right back. Let my dog in before it freezes.
No worries. So, as he stated, Angel and James did a phenomenal job yesterday. Very proud of them. They are killing it. They hosted these book clubs, and The Gap in the Game is going to be a phenomenal book that we're going to be doing in the next 2 weeks. So if you don't have it already, if you got the hard copy or just get the audio, I think that'd be great. Just get the audio. Like for instance, like tomorrow I got a 6-hour drive, and literally I think I can finish that book literally within that 6-hour drive. If it's on the audio, don't read, don't actually physically read and drive, but listen to the audio. But more so, yeah, we got a lot of exciting things that's happening this week, and not just that, guys. If you're not following us, we are live, Spotify. We also on iTunes. We're also on Apple Music. What else we're on 6
Spotify, the YouTubes, Amazon Music, all major streaming platforms.
Yep, iHeartRadio, and also Google Podcasts for you Androids. There you go.
Also, real quick, I want to add in here. So Chris and I are doing something. And for those of you guys, if you guys are new to our show, or this may be just a good reminder for everybody, we want you guys to leverage our show. And what I mean by that is, if you guys have things that you are doing, if you guys have things that you need help with, whether that's lending, whether that's you need somebody to close or do the transaction coordinating, you need buyers in a certain area, throw that in the comments. We would love to throw that on the screen for you guys and highlight you and get you guys the help and traction that you guys need. If you guys have any questions throughout this entire show, please feel free to throw them in the chat. Chris and I would love to answer them any way that we can. Like I said, we've got an amazing guest today. He's doing some amazing things, and I'm really excited to get going on this. But with that being said, I think what Chris and I are going to start doing, I made a post yesterday, or it could have been the day before, and we are looking for 3 or 4 sponsors, people who want to come in and sponsor this show. And every single month, like I said, we want to specifically highlight you. If you are a Gator lender, if you are a private money lender, if you're a transaction coordinator, whatever it is, if you're a buyer, we would love to highlight you. We'd love to put you in a position where you're elevated, and we can put your information out there and send people your way. There are so many people right now who are trying to figure out how to raise capital. How do I find these people? Do I have to do all the paperwork myself? No, you don't. As a matter of fact, in 3 years of doing this, I have never, not once, done a shred of paper. I hate paperwork. I will never do paperwork. I know that I hate it. It's not a good use of my time. It doesn't give me energy. Thankfully, Chris gets off on paperwork. Like he loves it. He eats it up. When he's doing his 22 days of fasting, that I think he eats paper. He loves it. So you guys, I just want to throw that out there. If you guys, if you guys have a business where you are lending, your transaction coordinator, your whatever, and you would love to come sponsor our show, please either shoot me or Chris a PM, and let's have that conversation. We'd love to see what we can do to help put you in an elevated position where people can reach out to you and get business done. After all, that's what the entire premise of this whole show is about. So with that being said, Chris, anything else you'd like to add before we bring on our guest?
No, I think you brought it on home.
All right. Hold on. Let me see if I can. I don't know if this is going to work. Tell me if you can hear this. I don't have my headphones on. You hear that?
Yep, I can hear
it. Ladies and gentlemen, from Memphis, Tennessee, standing 6'1", the man, the myth, the legend, Greg Clark.
Oh my God, Jesse Mofo Stanton.
Dude, I like that, bro. I'm gonna take that.
Chris James,
Thank
what's
you.
going on?
Dude, not
what's
much,
going
man.
on, man?
How are you?
Nothing much, man. I hadn't seen Chris James, I think, since Clever. Was it Clever?
I think it was Clever Summit.
Clever, right? It's the first time we met. That's awesome, man. Jesse, my guy, man. My dude, my lifelong friend and sub 2.
Bro, when you coming up to Alaska?
Soon. We got to make it happen.
I didn't imagine you guys had 9 foot of snow this year, right?
Yeah. You said what now?
I said I wouldn't imagine you guys saw 9 feet of snow this year, right?
Oh yeah. No, we saw like 2 flurries, bro.
Ooh, so you're due. Got it. Well, good, man. It's so great to see you. I was worried, honestly, Greg, that you weren't going to recognize me. There's a little bit of facial hair going on here.
It's going on over there, man.
Taken me, 6-7 months to grow, but I was like, man, I don't know. I don't want to intimidate Greg at all, but I don't want him to jump on thinking, hey, I thought Jesse was going to be here. So fortunately, we didn't run into that. There was no confusion.
Love it. Love it.
He's probably not even recognized me. So Greg, take a couple seconds, bro. Tell everybody who you are. What are you doing? Let's start there. And then every superhero has their origin story.
Sure. I'll try to make it quick. I can be kind of long-winded, but
you're good, dude.
Yeah. Greg Clark here from Memphis, Tennessee. Been in hospitality for most of my life. Bartended for 18 years, pretty much, and got into real estate back in 2018. The house that I was actually renting, ended up buying it from the owner, doing a fix and flip on it, and made a good bit of money, good chunk of change. And I was like, let's do it again. And then I discovered how hard it is to find a house for half the price to make money on it. So then I went down the rabbit hole of YouTube and wholesaling and all that good stuff. And it's been a fun journey since then. But primarily right now, what I do is focus on pre-foreclosures and primarily door knocking. That's where I get most of my deals. I do bandit signs as well. I have some cold callers as well, but primarily I get my deals from door knocking.
Good night, bro. How has this first quarter kind of spun and or what's the word I'm looking for? Are you seeing anything different the first quarter since 2023 started compared to the first quarter of last year in terms of foreclosures and just kind
absolutely,
of overall?
Man. I mean, so foreclosures are back and they're back hard. At the beginning of last year, they were still kind of trickling in from everything that happened with COVID. So, most of the foreclosures, they had put on moratorium. And so people didn't get foreclosed on. A lot of people got loan modifications. Some people filed for bankruptcy as well. And so it took to, mid last year before we really started seeing an uptick in the foreclosures here in Tennessee, primarily Memphis. And this year, man, we're rolling. Got 7 in escrow right now, 7 under contract. I got people out there I'm training to knock doors. I actually had 2 people reach out to me this morning, wanted me to take them out door knocking. So it's been exciting these past couple months.
Dude, that is phenomenal. You're the only guy that I know that's doing deals to the level that you are, that's out door knocking. I know there's a lot of people who are fairly new that reach out to Chris and I, and they're like, man, what do I do to generate leads? What's the fastest way to go and generate leads? I think if you're tracking KPIs per the amount of people you talk to, via either text or cold calling, or maybe you're sending out letters or whatever that is. I haven't done a whole lot of door knocking. I've done it. I mean, Alaska's kind of a different market. So if you want to come and door knock some igloos, feel free.
30 minutes to each house or something like that. Y'all are super spaced out. Mountains of snow. Got chains on your tires.
It is, bro. Yeah, we just hop in the. Sometimes I'll take my 3-year-old. We'll get in the dog sled and we'll just spend the day door knocking igloos.
I love it. I love it. That's got to be fun during Christmas time, right? Just put
it's a good time
on the dogs. Yeah.
Let me ask you. For everybody who's curious, whether or not they should even start door knocking, what made you start door knocking? We've got just all this technology at our fingertips right now. AI is just bigger than ever now. But you're crushing it in door knocking.
Well, when I first got started in it, I was doing some deals here and there. I started putting out bandit signs, and that would bring me some pretty stout deals that'll get me to the next deal, because it was kind of ebb and flow with the business. And then I tried, doing texting, cold calling. I hated cold calling. Try to get me to sit down for an extended amount of time. And I mean, I've bartended all my life. So I've walked 14 miles in a restaurant in a day. I'm literally moving and shaking. So I have to be active. I have to be doing something. Plus my dad's a mechanic. So, I've been turning wrenches since I was a kid, and it's just sitting at a desk all day just didn't suit me. And so when I got into sub 2, Pace, he was talking about door knocking and how, he picked up a lot of deals door knocking. I was like, all right, well, I'm good face to face with people. I met 200 strangers a day in a restaurant. I said, why not? Let's give it a shot. And I started in July of 2020, and I got a contract every single month from door knocking. I didn't close any, It's for actually I closed one. They all fell apart, but I started door knocking in 2020 when the moratorium was going on, so nobody was getting foreclosed on. Like the government took away everybody's pain, and so they didn't have the motivation to actually sell. And the ones I did get under contract, unfortunately, they fell apart. So that's pretty much how I got started. But what I'll tell everybody is this: door knocking is the fastest way to get a deal. It's the fastest way. And the reason why is because if you're cold calling or you're texting, the biggest hurdle that you have to overcome is the competition, for one. And for two, I would probably say about 30 to 40% of all my deals from door knocking, somebody's passed away. So if you're calling and texting, most of the time you're texting somebody who's passed away, deceased, and that person's not going to answer the phone, obviously. And everybody else is getting blown up because their file has hit public record at this point, and everybody and their mom's calling and texting them. So they don't want to answer the phone. Sometimes they get rid of their phone. Sometimes they'll get burner phones. Just go get a pay as you go, just so nobody calls them and texts them and they can still use their phone.
Right.
But when you go to the door, you'll have quality conversations faster. So I'll give you, some kind of numbers here. If you, have a co-caller, you're looking for $800 to $1,000 a day, right? To maybe get 1.5 leads a day, right? You go knock 30 doors in a day. By the end of the day, you're going to have 3 quality conversations with people who are clearly in distress. And so that's what I stressed out to some of the folks that I've trained how to door knock around town. It's and they realize it. Like the first day I had a guy, he's actually in sub 2. He went door knocking for the first time 2 weeks ago and got a lead phone number. Took us about 3 days to actually get her on the phone, but she was 1 day out from our auction. And she was like, I gotta get something done. This was Sunday night at about 8:00. Next morning, her auction was at, I think, 11. We got our auction stopped at 9:15. And he was super excited because his biggest thing was to get a deal under contract and to stop an auction. That was his goal from the beginning of the year. And he accomplished it by going out and door knocking once. That's how powerful it is. But it's you're having quality conversations. That's the biggest key when it comes down to doing deals in real estate, is just quality conversations. Most of the people, they jump on the phone. They're always trying to convince sellers, to sell, their house to them. And honestly, it's just about quality conversations with people. That's it. That's it.
Let me ask you something, Greg. You made a couple points real quick, but I kind of want to go back a little bit because I think I want to make a point here that I think a lot of people may have overlooked. Let's go back to when you were a bartender. Now, when you first took that job, did they hand you a script, Greg? They say, "Hey, Greg, you're going to be a bartender. Here's a script of what to say."
I mean, honestly,
this is how you converse with people.
If it depends on what restaurant you work for. So if you're corporate, they'll give you a script. They have a lot of SOPs in corporate. Obviously, that's how they grow, right? But in privately owned restaurants, I've worked for a lot of private chefs. One of the chefs I worked for, she trained with Emerald down in New Orleans for about 7 years. But I mean, the script is just kind of like a foundation, right? Just stay within this range of your service standards, parameters, and whatnot. But what makes you a great bartender is honestly just being yourself and having a conversation with another person. I think when it comes down to bartending, the reason why it translated over so well in the door knocking is because when you're a bartender, everybody brings you, their joys, their sorrows. I mean, you hear all kinds of stories, and it's just conversations at the bar all night. And so when I go to the door, for one, I have, incredible amounts of empathy for another human being. But for two, I'm just having a conversation with people. That's it,
Now, your style is so unique, bro. And I want to remind everybody that, because I think when a lot of people, when they first start listening to Pace, when they first find out about Pace, everybody's in that mindset of, oh, I want to be Pace. I want to be Pace. I want to be Pace.
Right.
But Pace has his own style. Chris has his own style. You have your own style. I have my own style. I think it's important to remember that script is it serves as kind of a foundation, but it's also it could be your demise if that's all you're relying on. And I love that you pointed that out. It's just have a conversation. It literally does not matter how the conversation goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll say this. When I go to the door, one thing I always lead off with is I let people know, why I'm there first off. And I introduce myself just like you would to any person that you saw on the side of the street. If you're coming up to have a conversation, if you're pleasant, you're going to introduce yourself. So I'll let them know who I am. And, I just throw it right out there. It's like, hey, I don't know if you know this, but your property popped up on public auction. And I usually have like something tangible in my hand to show them that it actually has an auction date. And then you get a variety of answers, but just, based off of, what they say, you just keep the conversation going.
Right.
One of the biggest things that is different with door knocking versus, cold calling or texting or something like that is the actual lead. Most people think that with door knocking, a lead is somebody who says they want to sell, and that's not necessarily true. And I think that's one of the biggest things. Like 80% of people, that you door knock or in foreclosure want to keep their homes, right? When you cold call somebody, you're looking for somebody who says, hey, yes, I want to sell. And then you further qualify and vet that lead. When it comes down to door knocking, it's a little different. Everybody wants to keep their home, right? And so it's like, well, how do you convince somebody to sell their home if they want to keep it? Well, you don't. Like, I never try to convince anybody to sell their home to me. What I do is I lead with value, right? So I actually had a lady that one of my knockers talked to, or he got me the phone number and I had a conversation. And right off the bat, I said, well, what are you trying to accomplish? Like, what's your biggest struggle right now? Like, that's my conversation. Like, what's your biggest struggle? And she told me, she was like, honestly, I want to keep my house, but I don't know how. And like, I feel like the predators are out. And she told me, she was like, I've never had a conversation like I've had with you. Like, and I gained her trust because I told her any and everything she could do to stay in her house. And that's the biggest differentiator. Like, most people want to stay in their house. Just tell them. I'd say, hey, look, why don't you try to go get a loan modification? Here are the steps. This is what you need to do. This is, what they're going to ask you. Mm-hmm. These are the things that's going to kick a loan modification out. And at the end of the day, if I help that person keep their house, it's a win, right? Like, absolutely. Think about that. That's powerful. Like, because of the knowledge that I've gained, I can walk out of my door and tell somebody how to keep their home, save their home from foreclosure. Like, I've never been able to do that before until I got educated on it, right? And that's powerful. But if they can't keep their home, how I position myself in that is like, if you got to think of me as the eject button. So I'll tell you everything you can do to save the plane. But if the plane is going down and you can't save it, hit the eject button, which is me, and I'll save it.
Dude,
I love that.
Oh my gosh.
I love that.
That is amazing. Let me ask you real quick. I want to, because for a lot of people wondering specifically, I've had a lot of people reach out, for example, and this is kind of like where I noticed that your style and my style is a little bit different. For me, that's never been something. And like I said, I don't go door knocking really very often. I go maybe a handful of times a year just to do it, just to stay in the game. I'm just trying to hit some singles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I do it, I'm just approaching it from the aspect like I don't even know what's going on. I'm like, man, you know what? I'm a local investor in the area looking to purchase some houses. Just was walking down the street. Have you thought about selling your house at all? But you come in here and you're totally different. And I love it. Like, you're not being around it. And it sounds like that's one of the first things that you address. When you introduce yourself, are you stating that you're a real estate investor, or like what is their perception of what you do and why you're actually at their door telling them how they can save their house?
It changes. It changes. I mean, I kind of read the person, but most of the time I leave that on the back end of it. Like I said, I lead with value. So you got to think about it. Like, everybody's like calling, texting them. They have this wall up. It's like a huge wall. And like, how do you get inside of their castle? How do you get around the wall of defenses, where you can actually have that conversation with them? Well, third-party stories. I mean, that's how like, literally, I'll walk up to a door and somebody's got their defenses up, and I'm trying to think of like a scenario, and I can't really think of one off the top of my head. But one of the things I'll say is like, if I just knocked, I had a lady that came outside and told me, like, she started crying on the porch, and she told me that her mom had stage 4 kidney cancer, and they had no idea what they were going to do. And like, I remember what I had, in that conversation with her, the conversation I had, the words that I said to her and everything like that. And so like 2 doors later, when I had a conversation with, the next person who was super defensive, wanted me to buzz off and everything like that. And I was like, some people have medical conditions, and I use her story and the conversation I had with her to tug on her heartstrings and get her to open up with me. because like showing empathy for another human being, like you gotta sit there and think about it. Like, man, we're human and we care about each other. Like a person cares about another person. So if you have that conversation and you have that empathy and you show that empathy, the walls come down and then you can have that conversation further. And as far as the investing part, most of the time I put that on the back end of it. Like I say, hey, just to let you know, I am a real estate investor. And I say, we're not like other investors. Like I could go to the auction and buy your house, but we choose not to do that because that doesn't help anybody, right? That doesn't help anybody. I could go to the auction and I can buy your house when they take it. It doesn't help you. We go directly to the person and say, how can I help you?
Wow. And just that transparency, I'm sure, puts you, clearly, it puts you on a pedestal more than anybody else. I mean, you could be the 10,000th investor that they talk to, and just clearly the way that you're communicating with them, that you are absolutely transparent and forthright with the reason that you're there. And I love how you articulated that, man. I'm going to actually use that. I feel like you articulated that so beautifully. Like it's like a plane going down.
Right.
And these are all the different ways that we can save this plane. I'm the eject button.
Yep. Here, I'll give you my best line. My best line. I actually just came up with this last week when I was talking to
Got my pen ready, bro.
Yeah. So me and this guy, we had a really good conversation. Like I said, just a conversation with another human being, just joking around on the phone. His situation was his father passed away and his brother and them, they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with the house. They're thinking about doing something crazy, tricky, like getting their father to file bankruptcy. I don't know. It was kind of weird, but I just told him, I said, look, in Tennessee, the auctions go really quick, right? Like you got 4 to 6 weeks. And once it hits that auction date, somebody else will own that house. I was like, look, whatever you do to stop your house, figure it out. But don't be like the guys on Titanic. I was like, you seen Titanic, right? And he was like, yeah, I've seen Titanic. I said, you remember the band on the ship? I said, don't be the band, bro. Don't be the band that plays as the ship goes down. And he just started laughing, man. He started laughing. I said, I will be your lifeboat. I will be your lifeboat. And I got an appointment with him next week.
I really need a Brand Daniels bell, dude.
Yeah.
Gosh, dang.
But as far as like qualifying the leads and everything like that, I don't waste too much time on qualifying door knocking leads. I don't waste too much time if I don't, I've been back the door several times. If nobody answers, I'll go back by, but I just put them on my queue and I just try to hit as many doors as possible. I train people how to door knock. They get me on the phone with sellers and, right now I'm just having a lot of conversations. Like I just got a text message right now. It's like, hey, call this lady. She needs help really bad. And I'm going to get on the phone with her and I'm never going to ask her to buy her house.
So let me ask you, Greg. Now, a lot of people probably thinking, are you doing this locally? Are you doing it virtually? What does that look like for you?
So I'm doing it locally for myself, investing, but I'm starting to have people reach out to me, all over the country, just for, help. And it's like, man, how do you position yourself? How do you do this? So it's actually pretty cool. And, if I can buy a house in a different area, I'm more than willing to, or more than willing to help anybody, jump on the phone with a seller and get a deal closed or something like that. It's interesting with the door knock lead that, and I think this is a big, paradigm shift when it comes down to cold calling and texting and regular investing and dealing with pre-foreclosures. It's a lot of gut wrenching situations, like really tugs on your heartstrings. I had a guy that called me. He lives in California, I believe, but he had somebody in East Tennessee on the phone because that's where he markets. And this lady was one day out from auction. He was like, hey man, can you jump on the phone with this lady real quick? She's like freaking out. And when I get on the phone, it's her and her husband on the phone. And she's trying to figure out like what she can do. And I'm like, you need to go file bankruptcy right now because your auction's tomorrow. Right. And she's already on the way. She was like, I know that's what somebody told me. And she has to drive 2 hours because you can only file bankruptcy, which I actually just learned this. You can only file bankruptcy in the state that you've lived in for the last 180 days. Right. And so if you live on the Tennessee-Mississippi line and there's a city right in Mississippi that you can go file it, you can't file there. You have to drive to the closest bankruptcy court in your area. And so she had to drive 2 hours to Knoxville. And so I'm on the phone with her. She's crying. She's freaking out. She's like, I don't want to lose my house. She asked me what I did, and I told her I'm an investor. I said, I don't want your house. The only thing I want to do is help you. What can I do to help you? Like, that's it. And she wouldn't file bankruptcy. She's trying to get her loan restructured. She's applied for a loan modification. And I just call and check in on her. I was like, hey, how's everything going? We'll have a, quick 15-minute conversation. She'll say, thanks for calling to check on me. And that's it. But I will tell you this. I actually just got a call 2 days ago from somebody who wouldn't file bankruptcy back in January. And we sat down and had a conversation with them. Their thing was, we really want to keep our house. I said, I respect that. And I told them everything I thought about bankruptcy and how it devastates your credit. She called me 2 days ago and she wants to sell the house now because she wouldn't file bankruptcy. I was a person that continued to follow up with her just to check on her, see how she's doing. And she can't afford the bankruptcy payments. She didn't call any other investor. She's actually getting 1,000 calls a day right now. She called me because I had the rapport with her. And how did I get the rapport? Because I was genuine, I was honest, and I led with value. Like I literally predict the future for them. This is what this looks like. This is what this looks like. I don't want your house. Never want to buy your house. That's it. And they call me back.
I love that.
So how do you make that pivot when they're like, hey, this isn't working? I know you said you didn't want to buy the house.
Yeah. How do I make that pivot into transitioning to buy the house? It's all what if scenarios, right? So you present options like this is how you stop a foreclosure. Like I tell people how to stop foreclosures. And one of those options is usually at the tail end of it is selling the home. And then I, tell them how selling the home could help them out. It's like, well, you pay back all the debt, you fix your credit, you don't get the big fat F, which is the foreclosure, and you might get some cash in your pocket. I don't know what that looks like, but if they start to explore that option, I say, all right, cool. The lady I went and met the other day, I had an appointment with, the one that said she felt like the predators were out. All the people are calling and texting her. And I told her when I went to the house, she was like, all right, cool. I know you want to see the house because you're an investor. And I said, whoa. I said, I don't care about the house. I stopped her from opening the door. And I said, I don't really care about the house. And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, I care about you. Let's make a good situation for you. Because if I can't make a good situation for you, there's no reason for me to be here. Like any business solves problems for another human being, right? Like it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if you're at Chick-fil-A. It doesn't matter if you're working at Goodyear and you're, changing somebody's alternator. First off, you're here to serve another human being, right? And you own a business by solving problems for as many human beings as possible, as fast as possible, right? That's it. So if I can't help you in your situation, there's no reason for me to be here, right? So we sat out on the porch and we talked for 45 minutes. And I just asked her, I said, like, what's a good situation for you? Like, tell me what that looks like. Like, get her to paint the picture of what she needs, right? And so, like, she couldn't get there. I said, all right, so next week your house is getting auctioned off. Let's think about that day. It's a horrible day. And you're getting kicked out of your home. Like, what would make that day better? I said, would money make it better? Or, moving to this part of town? Like, what does that look like? And then she started talking. And she said, I could probably move in with my sister, right? That would make it better, And she told me, she was like, if I had a little bit of cash, she said maybe 5,000. Now I have a number. And so me, as a real estate investor, me negotiating is never negotiating against her because like the fences are up, right? Yep. So I had the conversation with her. She said 5,000. I said, okay, so if you have $5,000 in your pocket, that would make your situation better. She was like, yeah, 5 to 10. I said, okay. But during the whole conversation with her, the first 2 times over the phone, I had got all the mortgage information and I know exactly where I need to buy the house at. And so because I am an empathetic person, I said, so if I was able to get you, I'm not saying I can, if I was able to get you anywhere from like 10 to 15, would that make your situation better? She said, you can do that. I said, I don't know, but I will try. Like that's literally how I got a contract signed on the house. I never set a purchase price. I never even committed to 15.
Right.
But later on that night, she signed a contract and I sent it in an escrow. We got our auction stopped.
I love that. I love that whole thing. I love everything you said. There were so many golden nuggets there, and I want to go back on a couple of those. You guys, I hope you guys have your pens and your papers ready because there's just so much going on here that is between the lines, and I want to go back and address a couple of those. And I love one of the most. I always tell people when they talk to sellers, they're always so quick to think about, what am I going to say next? What am I going to say next? They've got their script in front of them, and regardless of what the seller says, all they're focused on is, okay, what's the next thing I'm going to say? They're trying to tell you about them losing their house or whatever, and on the script, you're like, okay, got it. Well, tell me about the condition. It's like, what? And I love one of the things that you said in there. You never give your price, right? Whoever gives their price first loses.
Every time.
Everybody is so quick to, let me give you an offer. Let me give you an offer. Let me give you an offer. And I can't tell you how many people I have to tell, stop giving your offer. Stop even saying you're going to give an offer. Stop committing to anything. Do not even throw a number out like the way that you did it, right? You said, so if we could do this, that would make it better, right? I don't know if I can do it, but let me go back with my underwriters, my team, or my partners and just kind of see where we are for the month. And let's see what we can do to help you out of this situation. Put some money in your pocket.
Yeah.
I love that you said that. There's just so much from a psychological standpoint, from a sales standpoint. You asked some amazing questions. One of them being, what does an ideal situation look like for you? What is the best situation? And if the seller says, I don't know what that looks like. Most people would be like, okay. And then they go back to talking about the house. But I loved that you were persistent and you just articulated it differently. You gave her a different way to think about it.
Right.
Let's go to the closing day.
I want to say something that a lot of people don't understand about, foreclosure leads as well. Like it's almost like being in a relationship with a bank, and the bank is like, committing like domestic violence on you, right? Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen those situations? They're terrible, right? And it's, a lot of times people don't have their priorities in order and they put themselves in a situation, but just think about it. Like, you're overwhelmed with emotion if you are a victim, right? If you're thinking you're the victim, or you are the victim or whatever, you're overwhelmed with emotion. And if you ever tried to talk to somebody in like a relationship that shouldn't really be in that relationship, it's like, no, bro, he's not good for you, blah, 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 blah. It's like they don't hear it. Why? Because they're overwhelmed with emotion. That's exactly what happens when you're in pre-foreclosure. Like, there's so much stuff going on in your head that like people can't make like logical decisions. They can't. And so sometimes like you have to lead them. And the best way to lead them is to show empathy and not be like aggressive or combative with them, or just being like strong arm. Like all these people that call us like, man, let me buy your house. I want to buy your house. Let me make you an offer. And it's like, no, you sit there and you listen to them. And then you start painting a picture and getting them to paint the picture of what happens afterwards, because they can't see it because they're overwhelmed with emotion. They can't make a logical decision. Like, it's,
I want to hammer on that real quick. You said they paint the picture.
Yep.
Guys, if you guys are having conversations with sellers and you guys are telling them everything that you can do for them, you're going to tell them exactly what it's going to look like at the end of the road, you're not getting the seller to understand fully. It's not their dream. That was your picture. So like Greg said, you have to put them in a position where they're painting the picture. And the only way you can do that is from asking those types of questions. What does the last day look like for you? What would make that day better? Oh, well, if I had 5,000.
Yeah. I had a guy that I got on the phone with a couple of days ago, and he was like, okay, well, what can you do for me? Like, he was like really firm and stuff. I just fired right back. I was like, I have no idea, man. I have no idea. I was like, man, I need you to tell me something. I have no idea. I was like, I can try to help you. Like, it's just different. It's just different because most people are just like, well, I can do this for you. I can do this. I was like, dude, I have no idea what I can do for you. It's just like, it catches them off guard because it's not normal. Like, everybody is like hammering them. Mm-hmm. And it's like, here we go with another investor on the phone. What are you going to do for me? I'm like, I have no idea. Like, what can I do for you? You tell me. What do you want to see?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want to accomplish?
I'm a good fit for you.
Right. And if I can't solve your problem, I shouldn't do business with you.
Absolutely.
But like, I literally tell them that.
Absolutely.
Like, dude, if I can't make a better situation for you, I should not be here. 100%. And guess what? If I can't, this is another thing that really like hammers it home for me and them. It's like, if I can't, let me go find somebody else who can. If I can't solve it, I'll go find somebody else who can.
I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. That was well said, man. A lot of people think foreclosures are easy, but there's a process, and it seems like you figured out the process. And people like just to deep dive, and they wonder why they don't understand. Like they're going into a situation where the wall is going to be up, as you stated before, right? You can't just go in as a normal, typical niche list of a vacant home or whatever that may a tired landlord. You can't do that, right? So you got to approach it from a different standpoint. And if you're not there to solve a problem, what are you there for? And I love what you just said. I love that. I love that.
So I'll run through like one or two deals that I've done from door knocking. I had one last year, which was a killer deal. Knocked the door once, nobody answered. It was empty. I thought it was vacant. I left a note on the door. I'll tell you what I leave on the notes if you guys want to pull out a pen and a piece of paper. So what I actually leave on the notes is, "Hey there, here to help. Give me a call." That's it. There's no name. There's nothing official. There's nothing, "I want to buy your house." It just looks like it's very vague. It seems like a neighbor left it on there. And I'll leave my phone number. That's it. And it is a call rail number, so I can track it. But I'll leave the number on the door.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I'll leave a call rail number. It's recorded and everything when I have it. That way I can keep all the information because I'm always on the go. But this lady, I left a note on her door. She called me back the next day. I went over there and I had a 3-hour conversation with her. She had no lights. She had no food. She did have a car. Her stepfather passed away from COVID in 2020, and her mom was in a nursing home downtown. And I sat there on her bed with her for 3 hours while she cried.
Wow.
And I ended up buying the house, but I remember very vividly at the end, she was like, "Greg," she said, "thank you so much for helping me out." She said, "I want to tell you something." She said, "I had so many people wanting to buy this house." And she said, "You know why I sold it to you?" And I said, "No." She said, "Because you never asked to buy it." That was crazy to me. I was like, I guess I didn't. Like, I guess I didn't, because all I did was I said, "All right, cool. So let's try to figure out what you're trying to accomplish. What do you want to accomplish? You want to stay in the house? Yes. All right, well, let's try this. That won't work. Let's try this. That won't work. Let's try this. That won't work. Let's try this. That won't work." So your only option is to try to go file bankruptcy or sell a house. Like, I literally walked her through that, but I never asked to buy it. I ended up buying that house for $90,000. I put 60 grand in her pocket. She was able to keep her mom in a home downtown because they were falling behind on her finances. Her mom was actually about to get booted from the nursing home. So we put 60 grand in her pocket. I bought the house for 90. We put about 48 into it, and I sold it for 230. Right. And I kind of want to hammer something home on that. Everything you do is about helping other human beings, and you receive the value from helping as many human beings as possible. So in that scenario, I helped out her mom. I helped her out. Not only that, my contractor was calling me. It's like, "Dude, like, I need work. My guys are about to leave." Now I gave them work for 9 months. Right. And on the tail end of it, the lady who was trying to find a house, she was a first-time home buyer, and she couldn't find anything on the market because it was still hot. This was last year. Like, nobody could find a house. And she was staying in an apartment. She'd been trying for months to find a house. So, like, how many people did I help along the way?
Dude, just in that one deal.
Just in that one deal.
And you don't even know what the butterfly effect is going to be of that.
That was the first house I bought from her. At the same time, I bought another house that was vacant around the corner that had city liens on it from, they've been doing upkeep on the property. It was vacant. And so I bought that house as well. How many people did I help? All the neighbors were so tired of that house. When I pulled up, the neighbor came outside. She was like, "Please tell me you're about to buy this house." That's literally what the neighbor said when me and my contractor pull up. She said, "Please tell me you're about to buy this house." Because it was vacant. It was in the middle of a pretty neighborhood. It was trashy, weeds overgrown, had critters, all kinds of stuff in there. She said, "Please tell me." So how many people did I help in that neighborhood with their home values?
Right? Oh, absolutely.
And the second one I'm going to tell you about is one that one of my guys ended up knocking about a month ago. And their father passed away. And 2 brothers living in the house. And one lives in Arizona. But we're finally clear to close on that one. We just need to pay off on the bank. But this guy, he was in a really tough spot. He had just lost his job. They were making mortgage payments, and then they couldn't afford it anymore. And his brother wasn't helping him out with the mortgage. In this situation, we're putting 20 grand in her pocket. And he's just like ecstatic because that's going to help him in this situation, right? We're getting storage units for him, helping them move their stuff. I'm getting some movers over there for him. Like we're coordinating all this stuff because we got to have them out by the end of the month. But like, this is like the value that we add to folks, right? And that's the biggest thing. I never asked to buy that guy's house either.
Is you're building this business, like when you hit these types of milestones, do you ever look back at some of these conversations that you're having with these sellers and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a blueprint right here. I'm going to start changing for for example, like you mentioned that you don't ask people to buy their house and people are literally coming to you with their house on a silver platter. Is that something that consciously, like you looked back you took inventory of and you're like, man, I guess I never did ask to buy her house. Maybe honestly, moving forward, I'm going to tailor my conversations towards going that way too. Or does it kind of depend?
No. So when I really took notice of it, was when I started teaching people how to do it. When I started teaching people, that's when I started locking in the information and the blueprint of how it gets done. And I don't know, man, there's so much stuff you can unpackage there, like morally, because like a lot of people try to keep stuff like close to the vest. And you know how it is in sub 2, like it's community, man. We like help everybody out. Right. Yeah. And like most of the people in sub 2 are just like that. Like, it's like you have a phone call with somebody in sub 2. It's like, first thing is like, how can I help you? Yeah. Right. And so like, that's what it is. It's like, everybody tries to keep all the secrets and, keep all the, money for themselves and everything. And it's like, no, bro, like what you're supposed to do is like share, like add value to other people. Right. And as soon as you start telling somebody the secrets, you lock in even more, information, like you retain even more information. And after that, you literally help somebody else add value to themselves and their family. Like it's just everybody wins, bro. Like I've gotten more contracts since I started teaching people how to do this than me going to do it by myself. I used to be a solo knocker. But door knocking is powerful, man. And I mean, I'm not trying to just like jazz you up with money, but like my last deal of 2021 was $110,000 assignment fee because I talked to the neighbor across the street from a vacant house, knocked the door
on one deal.
Oh, they're all deep, man. They're deep. They're deep. Think about it, man. If you're calling them, you can't get a hold of them, right? If you're calling, you can't get a hold of them, right? The house that I knocked, I got the $110,000 assignment fee on, came from the neighbor of a vacant house. Like, who's calling the lady in the vacant house? It's the mother and the father had passed away. This chick had moved on. And I called her. I was like, hey, what's going on? I see you left the house over here. Maybe I can get you some cash for it. She was like, really? I was like, yeah. That came from the neighbor. She didn't even have her number. She contacted her on Facebook.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
Dude, amazing. Absolutely. Well, guys, we've got about 12 or so minutes left. So if you guys have any questions for Greg, please throw them in the chat. I mean, thank you so much for being on here, Greg, dude. The comments are just going crazy, man. Everybody's getting so much value from this. Please, guys, in the comments, give Greg some love. This is phenomenal. But real quick, Greg, I want to ask you a quick question in relation to door knocking and qualifying leads. For everybody who's in sub 2 or maybe even outside of sub 2, maybe there's a handful of people, at least you guys are familiar with what we call the 4 pillars. Now, in sub 2, we know those 4 pillars as what we use to basically kind of qualify or disqualify a lead. And for those of you guys who don't know what the 4 pillars are, it's timeline, condition of the property, motivation of the seller, and then the price. And any one of those things, if they're not in alignment with the other, then we'd probably either put them on follow-up or disqualify that lead. For example, if the timeline of somebody, if you talk to somebody and they said, yeah, they're interested in selling, but they're probably not looking to sell for another 9 months, it really doesn't matter what the condition is at that point, what the price is, all that kind of stuff. I mean, motivation is going to tell, why their timeline is so far off, but they're going to be follow-up, right? We're going to disqualify them. Obviously, it wouldn't make sense to quit what you're doing with all the other leads and focus on that lead just because they said yes, but their timeline isn't for another 9 months. So we kind of use these 4 pillars as kind of a foundation to qualify a lead. Now, when you're door knocking, are you still using those 4 pillars as kind of a foundation, or are those kind of a little bit different in knowing where you need to spend your time and who you're going to follow up with?
It's a little bit different, because when it comes on a timeline, like regardless of what they tell you, if it's in the paper and it has an auction date, that's their timeline. Like you already know their timeline, right? The timeline is like, it's a ticking time bomb. But when it comes down to the other, pillars, motivation, I mean, their motivation, like they got to solve a problem, but nobody ever raises their hand and says they want to sell. So it's a little bit different. But what I usually tell like my knockers is like, don't get the one-itis because you see a pretty house in a pretty neighborhood and you're like, oh, that'll be a good deal.
Absolutely.
Like, that's what I see the most is like most people get caught up on that one house. It's like, man, I got to find these people. So they'll go home, they'll start trying to like skip trace, different family members and all that. And I'm not saying you can't get a deal that way. 1000% you can, but more often than not, you're going to hit a dead end. And the biggest thing that helps you succeed in it is the consistency. So I just tell them, like, they'll call me and they'll start like getting in their head. They'll be like, so what if like I knock a door that another guy knocked, earlier today, and like I just stop them. I'm just like, dude, go knock the door. Just do the action consistently. Like if what you're doing is door knocking, go door knock and go knock the door. Just knock the door. And how I disqualify leads is, what I do is if I can get them on the phone and I have a conversation with them, of course they don't want to sell. I disqualify everybody. It's like, hey, look, let me tell you what you can do. Like I disqualify them right off the bat. Let me tell you what you can do to keep your home. Cool. I appreciate it. 2 months down the road or a month down the road, when the auction comes up, I'm continuing to do touches, right? Hey, just checking in on, hey, I just already disqualified them that I'm not buying their house, right? Mm-hmm. But once they get down to that, last week or last 2 weeks or something like that, then something has to happen. Mm-hmm. Like now they're more willing to have that conversation about, I really need to do something. How can I stop this? Eject. So it's a little bit different, than like my cold calling side. Cold calling side is like, everybody's already said they want to sell their house, and that, you're trying to negotiate with them, right? And you're trying to get those 4 pillars to disqualify as many people as possible. Hey, why don't you just go with a realtor? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? Like, I can't have that conversation with somebody in foreclosure. Like, I can't push them towards a realtor because that's a disservice for me, telling them to go with a realtor, because bare minimum is going to take a 45-day close and they only have 2 weeks, right?
Absolutely.
Like the timeline's just off. So like, that's me giving them a disservice by telling them to go with a realtor.
Greg, what are you
trying to find a realtor who can stop an auction?
Yeah, that's very true.
Or do comps,
or pick up the phone at that. But yeah, absolutely.
Right. Pick up the phone. That's a good one. Yeah.
But Greg, thanks for sharing that. What do you think about this question here from 10?
Mm-hmm. What about when a house is already foreclosed? We're doing one. So I don't really go after those if it's already foreclosed on. So I will say this: last week, Lindley, she got an auction date. I think it was 5 days before her new auction date. So like sometimes this happens if there's an auction date and the trustee like gets sick on that auction date or something, like something happens, like the trustee can't make the auction or something like that, they'll reschedule the auction. And that's like an act of God or something like that. But I've seen it happen where auctions will get postponed because of that. Something happens in the office or something doesn't get filed correctly and they have to postpone the auction. So we actually thought the one last week, it got auctioned off. Guy knocked the door after he thought it got auctioned off. And then just by happenstance, the auction got moved to the next day, the day after we knocked it. So, but houses that are already foreclosed on, and it's tough. It depends on like the state you live in. Like in Tennessee, like, yeah, we have a right to redemption, but like usually in loan documents, banks, they actually write in, you waive your right to redemption when you're signing these documents so they can take the house in foreclosure. Like we're non-judicial, like really quickly foreclosure state. Like different states, you might have a right to redemption. I just check on your foreclosure laws because if you have right to redemption, just like in tax sales, you have, sometimes like 30 days, 60 days, a year to come back and like pay up what you owe on the property plus like some kind of interest rate or percent to redeem your property. But if it becomes like an REO owned property, I really stay away from those. That's not really my bread and butter. I mean, I've talked to people a lot on it. There's actually one guy I talked at a meetup last week, and what he does is when the house gets foreclosed on, and he was like, man, you should probably get on this. So I'm about to drop some gold here. Apparently, when you get foreclosed on, if the house is bid over, let's say what you owe to the bank and the payoff from the foreclosure attorney is like 120. If somebody buys it for 140, 160, there is residual money there that is actually supposed to go to the seller. Like the sellers, that's the seller's property, right? And so they get all the excess money. And so there's a really small niche market where people go in with attorneys to go grab that money and get it to the seller. And they take a percentage of it for helping the seller get their money from their houses. This guy, he was like really good at it. I had a long conversation with him this week. So that might be something you want to look into. But generally speaking, like I don't go after houses that are foreclosed on. I mean, people go after REOs. It's not really my thing. But once it becomes foreclosed on here in Tennessee, the seller, like they can't do anything. Like they just no longer own the house. Like if a seller tried to sell me a house they got foreclosed on, like they have just committed fraud if they sell that house because they don't own it anymore.
See, that is interesting because I'm not. You know who Jory Austin is, correct?
Who's that? I'm sorry.
Jory Austin.
Yeah.
So him and I was taking down a property in Abilene, Texas last year. Mm-hmm. It was a foreclosure one, right? So a lot of the lessons learned through this specific process, but more so we closed on the property to find out 2 weeks later it still went to auction. And someone from the auction bought it as well. And so myself and Drew never knew this until the seller reached out to us. The original seller reached out to us and specifically said, hey, I got a letter and a check for the amount that was supposed to go to the lender to reinstate the loan. So where I'm gearing this conversation to is just the fact that specifically, one, I'm always make sure you use the right title company or attorney to help you facilitate the process and or a TC, whatever that looks like specifically. And two, I'm just glad we had an honest seller. That seller could have cashed that check. Easily. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, this is a lesson learned because Jury was out of money.
Go ahead. Y'all pay up the arrears?
That check that was submitted to the actual attorney was supposed to submit that to the lender. The attorney submitted it sent it off to the actual seller. So it didn't get paid on time. So in our eyes, we close on the property. We have the deed. We have everything associated with this specific property. 2 weeks later, the seller gives me a call. Say, hey, Chris, just to let you know, I got a letter that says this, this, and this. And also, by the way, I have a check. And I have like, what are you doing with a check? But I let him speak. And I kid you not, I said, well, let me reach out to Drury real quick because Drury him and I were partner on this specific property. And then that's when we realized we called the attorney. Mm-hmm. It was, I'm not going to say it's more so like a hearsay or, a blame back and forth, who should have did this. But long story short, always triple check especially when going through foreclosures, always triple check, make sure the money gets to the lender. Yeah. No ifs, buts about it. And in that case, I'm just super grateful that we had an honest seller who was able to, give Jury at least some of the money back. The wholesaler that, got paid out, unfortunately, didn't give the money back that, the assignment, because he was gone. Right. So little things like that, it's just a matter of, the foreclosures, it can be tricky. So timeline is definitely key.
Timeline is key. I actually had one deal like that where we had mailed in, like we tried to get the auction stop. And this is one of 2 times that I hadn't been able to get the auction stop when we tried. The sellers just never reached out to the lender. They were behind 2 years and they were like, no, man, these people hadn't reached out in 2 years. We're not stopping the auction. I was like, all right, cool. How much do you owe in arrears? We made sure title was clear. And what we did was we wired in money. It was a day before the auction, but we actually made the seller sign a quitclaim deed saying that they make sure they close on the property. It's like, look, you will be out in 30 days. If you're not, the deed will come to us and you will lose any other money that you were supposed to get, for the property. Right. And so we paid up the arrears. Well, it came down to the wire when we paid up the arrears because we sent the wire. We didn't mail anything, no checks. It was a wire straight to the lender. But the house still went to auction the next day. And I was on the phone all morning trying to confirm that the auction was postponed or stopped. and couldn't get an answer out of them. They were like, man, honestly, I can't tell you. So I actually drove down to the auction. Seller's on edge. She's biting her nails. I was like, look, I'll go down there and see what's going on. I went and sat at the back of the room of the auction, and the auction started. And 5 minutes after the auction started, they said, is anybody here for such and such property? And I kid you not, pretty much the whole room raised their hand because it was in a really good area of Memphis.
Oh my
They said
God.
this auction has just been pulled, or this house has just been pulled from auction.
Oh, good.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought you about to.
Oh, wow. I was like, man, where's this
Where
going?
you going with this?
Dude, that was set the scene perfectly on that
Right.
one. I think everybody was on the edge of their
But-
seats.
So I will tell you this, though, funny story about it. The guy in front of me, he like smacked the table. I mean, hard, boom. And I guess it was the secretary. She was new. She was like, well, what happened? She was like, well, sometimes, they go and they file bankruptcy the morning of. And if they file bankruptcy before the auction, then, they get an automatic stay. And she was like, oh. And I just like leaned up and I was like, I got that one stopped. And then he turned around. He was like, you got that one stopped? I was like, yeah, that's my property. He was like, how much you want for it? Like straight up, dude. He was like, how much you want for it? This guy followed me all the way to the elevator and down to my car trying to get that property from me. And he's one of my buyers now.
Love that. I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. But that one
That
came
is
close,
amazing.
man. It came close. But what would have happened if the 20 grand didn't go through? It would have went back to the
That's
seller.
true.
Right. And we
Yep.
probably would have lost that.
Yeah.
Amazing,
that's-
bro. Oh, my gosh.
Phenomenal, man.
Well, real quick, I know we're a couple minutes over, but I wanted to address Mary's question real quick. She said, can you please give us a quick list of options you give your seller? So I know you were talking about different ways that they could keep the property and then that eject button. What are some of those things that you're going over with the seller?
Sure. So, always start out with forbearance. I tell them to call the bank and ask for forbearance. They were giving them out like crazy during COVID, not so much anymore. But, honestly, man, if you come up with a crazy story to tell them, you might get somebody on the phone that, and this is literally me talking to the seller. You might get somebody on the phone that actually has a heart. You might get some little old lady that feels really bad for you. And she might, have the right conversation with the guy who makes decisions, right? Ask for forbearance. Number 2 is loan modification. And what a lot of people don't know is there's actually a federal law that says if you ask for a loan modification and you are like outside of, I think it's 37 days from your auction, like if you're 42 days out and you ask for a loan modification, by law, they have to pause your auction while you go through the loss mitigation process. Like that doesn't mean you're going to get approved, but it just buys you more time. I will literally tell them.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
I will literally tell them that. I was like, ask for a loan modification. Like I give them the goal. I tell them what to do. Like it's honest God truth. And so like what you have to be cognizant of, it's kind of psychological what I'm doing, but in a very, very good way. Like I'm telling you exactly what to do to save your home. Who else is doing that? Nobody. So when they fail to do that, who do you think they're going to call or work with? The guy who they trust, who gave them the correct information in the first place.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it's kind of psychological what I'm doing, but it's in a very good way because actually I had a lady call me last week. She was just like, thank you so much, Greg. And I was like, what did I do? She was like, well, you sitting down and having this conversation with me actually helped me save my home. She was like, I just want to tell you thank you. And so I'm gonna try to go call her, give her $100 to do a testimonial for me. Really sweet lady, but like,
Nice.
do you know like that's how my day started? When you have somebody like call you and tell you like you helped me save my home, that's food for the soul.
That's why we do it, bro.
No,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So I go with loan modification, and then so there's a couple other things that you can tell them about, and I have these conversations. I say, look, so how far are you behind, right? And so like I'm gathering information, right? Like how far are you behind? Because the only reason I'm asking is because if there's something around your house you can sell, like some people have extra cars. Some people, like I ran into people, they're like six grand behind, right? And they're like, man, we can't come up with the money. I'm like, bro, you got a car sitting there right there in the driveway. Like, do you value the car better or more than the house? Like, I get it. You need one to drive and make it back and forth. I get all that, but like, there's an extra one sitting right there. Like, which one's more important, right? I had one lady. She had Hot Wheels in her attic. Her grandma did a lot of yard sales, and she found Hot Wheels in the attic, and they were going for $200-300 a piece because they were collector's editions or something on eBay. Right. So she got a lot of money from that. And I tell people third-party stories, like look around the house. Like if you got China, whatever you can liquidate, you know, if that can get you up to the, and then after that, you go to family members, right? Because if a family member see you like really try to get the money, like, come on, like we're resourceful, bro. Like, how can you come up with the money? If the family member sees you trying, like they might loan you the rest of it. Right.
Yeah.
And the lady from last week, she actually got a loan from her son. And just to go back to what we were talking about earlier, she was so overwhelmed with emotion when I found this out after 30 minutes of talking to her at Panera Bread. That's where I met her. She was so overwhelmed with emotion that it came out that she was actually in denial and she was actually embarrassed to talk to her sons about her in foreclosure. And I was like, whoa.
Wow.
I was like, that's what family's for. I was like, your sons will help you out. Like, she didn't have a bad relationship with her son. Like, she, no fights or anything like that. She was just really embarrassed.
Yeah.
And so she called me back and she was like, I had that conversation with my son and he was just like shocked and surprised. And he actually got upset with me that I didn't tell him. And he's going to help me, pay up everything. And all it took was that conversation I had with her.
Amazing.
And so like, these are the things that I have, the conversations that I have with people. And I always bring in a third party story from somebody else. A third party story will get you a long way because like I'm telling you, man, like stories are powerful. That's how you get your point across. That's how you get people to understand who you are and what you do. So I tell a story like that to like a seller who has their defenses up at the door and they just start going down because it's like, oh, you really did that? You helped them? And they understand, like the emotions get them to understand what I'm doing. Right. And so like that helps out a lot. And so those are a couple of options. There's a couple other things that I have, like, you could open up a lawsuit. I'll tell them about lawsuits. It was like, most people, they don't really have the money to, but if let's say their loan balance or their arrears are like 30 grand, it's like, all I have is 5. It was like, well, you can try to open up a lawsuit. A lawsuit will stop it. You got money to pay that attorney and it'll buy you more time. So, you can put down, a retainer with the attorney and file a lawsuit. It'll postpone the auction. Right. I literally tell them all this stuff. And then I tell them about bankruptcy. I tell them about, selling a home and, that's pretty much it. There's FHA partial claims, which are similar to loan modifications. But I just tell people the tricks of the trade.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And those are the options that I give them. But the one thing that they don't understand is the best option for anybody in foreclosure is to sell the house. 1,000%, man. Like, I've been doing this long enough. And what I see is, it's one thing if like you can come up with the arrears or a family member gives you money, cool. If you can pay it, you can pay it. But any of these other options, they put you in really, really bad situations, especially bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is the worst. It really is. Like, I had a conversation with a guy, sat on the porch with him for about an hour, and it was a 65-year-old man, and he just cried because he had filed bankruptcy twice to keep his home getting taken from him. So he has 2 bankruptcies on his credit, and now he's getting foreclosed on. So he's going to have 2 bankruptcies and a foreclosure. And he told me, he was like, man, I should have just sold my house to the investor that came by my house from the get-go, because I would have put 20 grand in my pocket to start over. Like, I would have paid up all my debt, got 20 grand to go put down a down payment on another house. Now I have 2 bankruptcies. I have no equity, right? I have no equity. I can't even go get an apartment. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Wow.
Interesting.
Bro, well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer
Absolutely.
Candace's question real quick. Candace said, as a newbie, what is the best way to learn handle foreclosure leads from start to finish? Candace, call Greg. go find that. Literally, that's the best way to learn it. Go find somebody who's doing what you guys want to be doing.
That was going to be my answer.
Go lead with value.
Yeah.
That's it. Speaking of which, Greg, what's the best way for people to reach out to you who want to do deals with you, bro? Yeah,
Instagram is probably the best way. Instagram handle is Greg Clark 901.
Is that an area code or something? Or was like 1 through 900 already taken, Greg?
Yeah, I guess it's too many Greg Clarks out there. Greg Clarks.
Awesome, dude. Guys, I love it. Thank you for being here. This has been truly valuable. I'm so glad that this is recorded. Again, you guys can go back and rewatch this on YouTube, on Facebook, on all the major streaming platforms. Greg has dropped some golden freaking nuggets in here. If you guys got some value from it, there is no fee for this podcast, monetarily speaking. But if you guys got value from this, your fee is please go share this with somebody. Take a screenshot and go tag Greg in it. and tell him what you learned, what you took away from this. What are you going to, what are some of those action steps that you're going to implement that you learned from today? Greg, I love you, brother. Thank you so much. Do you have any
I have one thing. I see this last question over here. My answer. She says, I think, is it Juliet? She said, is it illegal to recommend bankruptcy? That's very, very gray area, but no. Me having a conversation with somebody is one thing, and I don't recommend they do bankruptcy. I actually tell them not to do bankruptcy, right? But having a truthful conversation with somebody is a different thing, right? So if somebody goes like, what are the ways I can stop my house from getting foreclosed on tomorrow? Well, bankruptcy is one of the ways to stop it. Like, that's on Google, right? I'm just reiterating like the truth. I'm not recommending they file bankruptcy. I actually want to buy their house and help them out of that situation. So I'm not recommending they do it, but I tell them the options that will save them from, getting their house foreclosed on. And I'm not being an advisor. I tell everybody, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a realtor. I literally say that when I'm talking to them. I was like, I'll do my best to help you out, but I don't, that's another thing that I'll leave y'all with. If you door knock and you go and you have these conversations with people, you can give them all the gold, but you can't do anything for them until you are protected. Like, I'm going to say that again. You can't do anything for them until you're protected, because you're going to run into some really, really interesting situations that tug on your heartstrings, and people will try to prey on that. You just have to be cognizant of it, really cognizant of it. But I tell people everything they can do to stay in their homes. If you physically want me to do something, then unfortunately I have to buy the house.
I love that, man. I love that.
Yeah. But thank you guys for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for the questions. Jesse, you got anything else for me?
No, bro. I want to fly. I'm dead serious about this, dude. I would love to fly out to Memphis and just come like spend like 2 or 3 days, dude, and let's do a meetup with you and do some door knocking with you. I think that would be just
some barbecue. I'll cook you some barbecue. Oh, yeah. Dude, I've already cooked like 20 racks of ribs this year, man. 20 racks.
Yeah.
We did a competition last week. We got a competition this next weekend coming up. We're doing wings. Oh man, you got to get some food if you come down here, bro.
Bro, okay, done, son. Yeah. I love it. Sounds good, brother. All right, Chris, anything else, man?
Yeah, no, guys, thank you all for being here. Greg, you're phenomenal, man. If you guys are looking to get into foreclosure space, Greg is a phenomenal individual to reach out to. I think, but I know he's doing this virtually, and also you're buying all over. Where are you buying at, if you mind me asking? Right?
Honestly,
I know you're buying in Tennessee, but I'm not sure if you're buying
Tennessee is where I'm focusing at, but I'll do deals anywhere. If anybody needs my help, just reach out to me, man. I'll jump on the phone with sellers. I'll walk you through stuff. Just reach out.
I love it. Guys, don't forget to subscribe to the House of Cards with Chris James and Jesse Stanton. We'll be here next week, 1:30 Eastern Standard Time, faithfully. Alaska time is 4 hours behind, and make sure you follow the time frame. But we always in Eastern Standard Time, 1:30 every week, Saturday. See you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to the House of Cards podcast with Chris James and Jesse Stanton. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and have learned something new about real estate investing. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more tips and tricks. And don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Until next time.